Hello, everyone out there. Thank y'all for tuning into the Real Resilience Talk podcast. This is episode 83, 8 over, and today I'm joined with somebody very special, a warrior out there doing big things. Today's guest is Dr. Stephen Paul Edwards, and he is an international speaker, an author, a spiritual counselor, and someone whose journey has taken him through success, heartbreak, identity collapse, reinvention, and ultimately deeper self-awareness and purpose. As y'all know, we talk on this show about a lot of things to do with all of those themes. And the whole idea is to hopefully help someone where they may need it, or that somebody who hears it can help someone in their circle who may need it. And that's just all it's about, is trying to do good with things. And if, like Maya Angelou said, if you don't like something, you change it. If you can't change it, she said, change your attitude. That's what she said. So without further ado, give it up for Miss Dr. Edwards, y'all. Yeah. Appreciate you being here, sir. How you doing today?
I'm doing awesome. Thank you. Should I call you Cam or Coach Cam? Or?
You do whatever you want, as long as you just don't call me Butthead. I'm good with that, sir.
I'm going to go with Cam.
That's perfect for me. Yes, sir.
Cam. Well, I'm really excited to be here. Thank you for asking me to come on.
For sure.
Based on what I know about you and what you're here to do, I'm really excited. I think we're going to have fun, and I really believe and feel strongly that everybody's going to get what you want them to get with something of value that they can use immediately that will make a change in their lives.
That's what we want to do. So, hey, with that said, thank you again. And I'm gonna ask you what I ask everybody when we first start the show. The word resilience. You know, we can look at Merriam-Webster, we can look at all these different outlets and things like that. But usually, people have their own personal definition of what they feel like it is. So, with that, what is resilience to you, Dr. Edwards?
Wow, interesting that you would ask me that question. I don't know if you ever heard of it. It's called the Heart Math Institute. It's out in California, and I actually did a whole course on resilience. Right
there, it is.
Can you believe that? Right,
I love it.
And that's a long course, right? So it means a lot, and there's a lot to it. However, what it means to me, in essence, is this: we're not born with resilience, right?
Yes.
It's something that we actually can, if you like, earn, right?
Yeah.
Through going through difficult times, through going through struggles. To no matter what happens, you know, and you've heard this a million times, man. It's not how many times you fall down, it's how many times you get back up, right?
That's right. That's right.
And that takes resilience, right? And so to get there, you have to have struggles in your life. So rather than believing that they're happening to you, you have to accept they're happening for you.
Tell it. Yes.
They're making you stronger. They're making you more prepared to deal with life. They're deepening your soul, your spirit, your character, right? And we all want to have those things, right? And without resilience, you can't get there.
Yeah, I concur. Man, that's a beautiful definition. I'm sure I know some of my listeners in the car going, amen, like it's church or something. Yes, tell it. Yes.
Go ahead, preach. Yes.
Yeah, no, it really is though. It's real. And I also feel like another part of that is like we can kind of get complacent and we can lose those. I like the metaphor of saying it's like calluses, like David Goggins talks about callousing your mind, callousing your soul. We have calluses on our hands, but if we stop, picking things up, we're going to have baby soft hands again, and it wears off.
It's happened to me, man. It's happened to me, where you forget what you know, you take it for granted. Life is going to kick your ass, right?
That's
so
it.
It's a never-ending journey, right? So, yeah, I 100% agree with you, man. I concur. I think that's so true. You got to it's like going to the gym, man. You can build some muscles, but if you don't keep going to the gym, those muscles are going to disappear, right?
That's right. That's right.
Life, yeah. So good point.
I love that analogy too, because here's the other part of it. No one else can go to the gym for you.
No, right? Wouldn't that be cool?
Oh my God, I'd have a whole staff.
Yeah.
I need you to work on abs today. I got this little love handle right here. I need you to work on that right there. Yeah, I got little calves. Keep doing calf raises. Yeah. But if you don't use, I tell my background's in the Marine Corps, but I used to make the joke with Marines because pull-ups is one of our big evaluation pieces with physical fitness, and but to me, it's like resilience is like pull-ups and algebra. If you don't use it, you lose it. It could fall off, and we can, have a downward spiral. And I love what you said too, that we can forget who we are. We got to remind ourselves who we are. That's powerful.
It's one of the big parts of the book, man. It's a big part.
Tell us about that. So you're the author of The Venus Flytrap. I love it. I love the artwork behind you. I love the play on the green. I'm a big fan of that. That whole the Joker colors. That's what I love. But yeah, tell us about that and anything else you want to expand upon, sir. Please.
Sure. All right. Well, probably should start with a bit of background, right?
Yeah.
I brought it up because it was it was relevant to what we were talking about. So I come from England originally, right?
Yes, sir.
I was raised in a little town in England called Blackpool, and I had a very traumatic childhood, just like we all did, right? you know, when you say that, I was going, well, me too, right?
Yeah.
So I felt like I was always walking on eggshells, right? That I was in a very controlling environment, that I didn't have a voice, right? That I could barely move. And so I felt like I was in a straitjacket. And when I went to bed, I used to have to bang my head on the pillow until I was exhausted to get to sleep. So I said, like, I felt like it was in a straitjacket. I had this anger, right? This rage because I can't say anything. I can't do anything. Everything I do is wrong. It's never enough. All these things. Normal things that kids go through, right? So by the time I was 16, I was in a straitjacket. I was in a mental, an insane asylum, right? I mean, no kidding, right? And so I actually had an experience of mania, right? Which it was explained to me in a different way. But at that time, it was called manic depression. We call it bipolar now, right?
Yeah.
So they had to get me down, right? I felt so great. And one of the things they did is they used electroconvulsive therapy, ECT. I don't know if you're familiar with it, but it's basically putting electricity through your brain, right? Which fries your brain and causes you to go into a convulsion. Now, and it actually burns away part of your brain. And the idea is hopefully it'll burn away memories that will stop you having this experience again. Maybe it's worked for some people. But anyway, so what it did, along with the drugs they gave me, it put me into a terrible depression for a long time, an extended period of time. And then throughout my life, periodically, not the whole time. But but the point is, I became ashamed of that, that I had mental illness, right? Because back then, and even to this day in some quarters, it's frowned upon, right? It's like, judged in society, right?
It is. It is.
So I pushed that down, and then it was reinforced with different things that may sound minor. Even when you would go for a job and write out an application, it would ask on the application if you ever had mental illness.
Yeah.
But what are you going to say? I mean, if you say, you might as well just walk out, right? You're not going to get the job. But again, it's a question that people are asking that makes you ashamed of it. You don't want to bring it out, right? And then there were numerous other things that are also in the book that made me feel ashamed, gave me the opinion that I'd done shameful things or shameful things had happened for me. And that, when you don't let that out and you don't have a way of communicating it because you're too scared, I mean, what are you going to tell? What are you going to tell your girlfriend, for instance? Yeah, I've had mental illness. Oh, really? Okay, well, that was a nice day, and that's the end of it, right?
It's true.
Or even people in society, or your friends, right? Because you're going to be judged. That's your belief. Now, whether you are or not, it doesn't matter. If you believe that's what's going to happen, you're probably not going to bring it up, right? You're not going to bring it up.
Yeah.
So you're burying it, right? And without realizing that, you're only living half a life. Because you're afraid that people are going to find these things out. And then they're either not going to love you, they're not going to trust you, they're not going to appreciate you, they're not going to want to be your friend, they're not going to, all these things, right? So that was how it was for me. I can't speak for other people, but that's how I felt, right? And then there was a bunch of other things that happened in my life where I felt betrayed or whatever it was. And so I became a little bit of a rebel without a cause, right? So I got involved in because I didn't feel loved or appreciated in my own home. You go looking for love in all the wrong places, right? Acceptance in all the wrong places. Everybody wants to find family, which is why I can relate to gangs and why gangs are very, successful. Because they are playing on young people's need to have family, and it represents family to them, right? And so I did, right? Didn't necessarily get involved in a gang per se that had a name, but I was in a gang that and we didn't go out shooting people because that wasn't really done back then. And besides, they don't have guns in England. But you know what I mean? Doing drugs and all those kind of things.
Right.
And I did that for a while, and I was just really lucky, Cam. I mean, really lucky that I don't have a biochemistry that becomes addicted, right? My body eventually rejects it, whether it's a drug or it's alcohol, whatever it is. I never became addicted. And here's what I know. It takes a second to become addicted to anything. Right?
Fact, yes.
You can have one sip of alcohol and it's done, right? You can take a drug once and you're addicted. So I don't make any claims that I am better than anybody else in that regard. I was just very lucky.
Yes.
But I did use, and I started out with amphetamine, actually, before I did marijuana. And I liked amphetamine more. It made me feel awake, made me feel alive, gave me, more strength, better sexual drive. Whereas marijuana just used to knock me out, make me paranoid, and make me eat. Right?
That's right. Yeah.
You know what I mean? So I'm not sure I like this anymore. I'm just doing it because everybody else is doing it. I'm not sure it's really good. It's not working for me. Anyway, bottom line is I went through this period in my late teens and through my 20s of, what do they call that? Being a rebel without a cause, right? So, and then I cleaned my life up when I came to America, which is in my late 20s. I'm not exactly sure why. What I remember was thinking, that America is very healthy, right? It's very and you people live a clean life over there, because that was my perception, right? I mean, I learned it was a little bit different when I got here.
Yeah.
I decided to work out, eat healthy, and do all these things.
Look like Rocky and Sylvester Stallone.
Yeah, exactly, right? Yeah. There you go. Right?
That was a movie, Dr. Edwards. Some of us look like Free Willy at the beach. It's okay, though. I'm a bit husky myself.
Oh, shit, man. When I first came over to America, we're saying inside trap, it doesn't matter. When I first came to America, I was 21. This is before I moved here, right? And me and a friend of mine, we get to San Diego, right? Because his girlfriend lived in San Diego. So we went to the beach, right? And, there's no sun in England, so we didn't have a tan. We looked like a couple of milk bottles, right? And so, anyway, we just run out into the ocean thinking, no problem, we're just going to go swimming around, right? So the next thing, we don't even really look around. We're like 5 miles down the beach, right? And then the Coast Guard's coming out because we're in a rip current, right? I didn't even know what a freaking rip current was. Never even heard of it,
America.
Right? Oh, my God, man. So finally, we got to shore and we're like, holy shit, man. We don't know anything, right? We don't know what's going on here. So that was my first experience of being over here. And then it went from there, right? We did some crazy shit. But anyway, I moved here in 1989. So I bought a business, right? Because, to get in America, you got to pay, right? Even look at it today. Now you can spend, $10 million and you get a green card, right? It was kind of like that back then, right? So I bought a business, and then the business failed, right? Which wasn't new for me. I had a lot of businesses that failed, right? Which are all learning experiences. I went through my first divorce, and then I started working with Tony Robbins, right?
Like Tony Robbins? Tony Robbins?
Tony Robbins, yeah. Yeah. So my first wife was Indian. When you said that, my first wife was Indian, right? Mm-hmm. And people used to say, now, was she Indian or Native American Indian? And I would say, well, first of all, rude. Second of all, and then I go, second of all, I'll look into that.
Yeah.
So anyway, I married an Indian. She was amazing. And we had a wonderful marriage, except for one thing, and that is that she was my best friend and I wasn't really physically attracted. So that, obviously, we stayed together. We were married for 10 years. So that was an interesting experience, right? And it was also an experience that taught me that racism doesn't go one way. It's not a one-way street, right? Because her family were all from India. Mm-hmm. And for her to marry a white guy, that's just not acceptable. So that caused all kinds of problems and opened my eyes. I'm thinking, holy crap, I never would have thought for a second that people from different races would be racist against us, right? You just always think, well, it's white people that are racist against other cultures. But I grew up in a town where it didn't exist because it was a holiday vacation town. Mm-hmm. It wasn't industrial. There were no factories. And when people came over from other countries, of which they were perfectly entitled to do, because we colonized their countries, right? And part of that agreement was they could come to England if they wanted to. Well, they did, en masse, right? And it wasn't, I met Mandy, her name was Manjeet. I met her in Coventry in England. And Coventry is an industrial city with factories. And there were tens of thousands of people from India. I mean, there were whole parts of Coventry that didn't speak any English. And there weren't any English people there. It was like little India, right?
Right.
So she lived there, obviously, because she was Indian. And I met her through some work that I was doing there. And we just hit it off, and we became really, really good friends. She took me home, and her family were like, well, they're obviously just friends. I mean, she wouldn't even think about being in a relationship with a white guy. Next thing, we're getting married. You can imagine the whole freaking family, the whole community just freaked out. I'm not sure, but I'm pretty sure they had a contract out on me to kill me, so I couldn't. But anyway, we ran away. We literally ran away, man. And then we got married. And what was interesting is little by slow, the family came around. Her parents actually came to our wedding, which was unbelievable, right? Mm-hmm. So it just shows you that if you're committed to something, things can change that you would never think could change, right?
Very true.
So her mom used to treat me like her son, right? I remember one day she worked at the Jag, which was the Jaguar car manufacturer. Mm-hmm. And she'd walk home. It was like 3 miles. And one day she's walking home from work and she passed through a fruit stand, right? And somehow, some way, I'd mentioned that I liked watermelon, mm-hmm. right? Honeydew melons. So she bought like 3 of these honeydew melons, put them in a bag, and walked all the way home with those 3 melons in a bag.
And this is your mother-in-law?
This is my mother-in-law, right?
Yeah.
I mean, that's amazing, right? That she didn't think anything about it, right? So really amazing people. Anyway, so from there, we came to America together, myself and Mandy. And then I'd made the decision that I made a mistake. I shouldn't have married her, right? Because it wasn't fair, right? Because I knew that probably eventually it wasn't going to work out. Mm-hmm. But I also knew that I wouldn't just leave her because she'd be left alone, because she'd had to give up her family to be with me. She'd had to basically... And
now she's in a whole other country, too. Yeah.
Country, right?
Yeah.
So I wanted to make sure that she was fully reunited with her family. And the biggest part of that was her brother, her older brother, who had never forgiven her for this, right? He was a lot older than her, right? So he was born in India. And her father came to, we're getting so sidetracked here. But anyway, her father came to America.
Right.
Well, actually England. Her father came to England to start a new life for the family, right?
Yeah.
Took 10 years. And then when he came, his wife, her mother, came to England, that's when they had Mandy. So she was a lot younger than the rest of her family, right?
Got you.
And she was anglicized, right? Because she grew up in England. She'd never been to India.
She was born and raised, yeah.
Born and raised, second generation, right? So for her to marry a white guy wasn't such a big a deal as it was for the family, particularly her older brother who had an arranged marriage. Right? So he was bitter about that. And then Mandy comes along, who is the favorite of her father, and she's now thinking about not just marrying someone who isn't even, in the same caste, but a white guy.
Right.
And he's pissed, man.
Yeah.
He's pissed, right? Which I could understand, but he'd never come around, right? And I said, I can't leave her. I can't divorce her until she's got everybody back. So finally, we get the brother involved and everything's back. And then we got divorced, which was very difficult. And even after that, we still spoke together every single day, multiple times, for 5 years.
Even after the divorce?
Even after the divorce.
Wow.
Until my mother said to me one day, she said, Stephen, if you don't let Mandy go, you're never going to have room in your life for anybody else. And it was a big shock to me, right? I was like, wow, yeah, it's true. So we had to let each other go, because obviously it was holding her back too, right?
Yeah, that's true.
So we did, and that was hard. Anyway, don't even know why I told you that story, because I don't usually tell that story. But anyway, it's part of my life, and it's in the book. It's actually in the book, right?
No, I'm grateful for you sharing it. That's a real circumstance that a lot of people deal with, especially with you, and the whole racism thing. That's a real thing. Everybody on the planet is capable of being racist no matter what they look like, you know.
Yeah,
and then the difference of cultures coming together, and the resilience of, you know, sticking it out, and then the bond y'all created. No, I appreciate you sharing that, because that's loyalty and love, but at the same time loving someone enough to go, hey, I don't want to waste your time. We're better off not doing this. But you made sure she was taken care of before you just up and left. So that's thoughtful as hell.
Well, I felt it was my responsibility because she left her parents for me, right?
Right.
So, yeah, I felt it was the right thing to do. Anyway, so the next thing then was I started working for Tony Robbins, right? It sounds really easy, but it wasn't easy. You know, at this point, marriage was over and our business was over too, right? So I had to figure out what I was going to do next in my life. Right? And so just, you know, coincidentally, which of course we know there aren't any, right? A girlfriend of mine, a friend who was a girl, called me and said, hey, listen, I'm going to go see Tony Robbins tomorrow. I've got a couple of extra tickets. You want to come?
Mm-hmm.
And I'd bought his audio program, right? And I thought it was amazing. I went, yeah, I'm coming. So we went at a time when I was really trying to figure out what I was going to do next. So I see him on stage and go, I'm going to do that, right?
Yes.
It makes it look easier than it is, right? So anyway, so then I set about getting to work with him, right? So I found out that he has like 6 guys that go all over the country speaking and promoting his events. So I thought, well, I'm going to do that. So then I had to find out who hired the speakers, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I found out her name was Deborah Russell. And you had to put a video together. So I found out all the things. You had to put a video together, right? And then they would watch the video, and if they were interested, call you in and everything. So I'm a bit of an overachiever, right? So I'm not, what do they call that? A+ personality, whatever it is anyway. So I'm going to find a way to do this, and it's going to be really good, right?
I don't half-ass nothing. I go hard. Yeah.
I got a freaking TV studio to make the video in, right? That's how I go over the top, man, right?
I love it.
And I found out that you send the video, and there was a bunch of things you had to do, like homework or assignments that you had to do. And I did all that, put it all together with the video. It's like a VHS video, because what they were back then, right? So, and you had to send it in, and I sent it in overnight. So I knew that the package was going to be on her desk at 10 a.m. the following morning, right?
Right.
So then I call her up at 10:05. Right? And I introduced myself. Hello, Deborah. My name is Stephen Edwards. You know, I just sent you a video and all the homework to be, you know, becoming a speaker. And she goes, listen, do you know how many of these I get every month? You know, I'll get to yours if and when I get to it.
Okay, Miss Deborah. Okay.
So I go, all right, well, this is a moment you got to step up and you got to say something. Otherwise, you're dead in the water, right? So I go, yeah, I know you get a lot of these, Deborah. I know you do. But here's the thing. You don't get any like this one. Right? So I go, take a look at it, and I'll call you tomorrow. She called me later that day.
Wow.
And she said, okay, here's the deal. We're going to fly you out here for a few days. If we like you, you're going to get to stay. If not, we're going to put you on a flight back. If you're open to those parameters, we'll have you out here. And I go, yeah, I'm in, right? So I ended up going out there, and I actually stayed there for 3 months.
With Tony Robbins and his whole staff and everybody? Wow.
Yeah, I actually went to his Christmas party.
Yeah.
Yeah. And my first city that I went out and promoted was Portland, Oregon, in January 1995, I guess, because I think I went out there in 94. Anyway, and so eventually I became the national sales manager. I was on the board of directors of the company, Robbins Research International, right? And you want to talk about making a dream come true, manifesting something. It was just a powerful experience of what he teaches works, right? You know?
It's true.
So I lived it. And then I worked for Tony, and he said something one day that he probably thought was going to really secure me on staying with him for a long time. And it actually made me think, I don't want to be here forever.
Mm-hmm.
Right? This is the stepping stone on my journey to where I want to go. So I left working for Tony, and I started doing my own 3-day mind, body, and spirit events, right? I still use some of his stuff. I still did firewalking and some of the crazy stuff. We did some skydiving. We did ropes courses and all those kind of things. So anyway, it was all about, getting over your limiting beliefs and fear and those
That's right. Yeah.
But also using some more spiritual processes and because I was drawn more to the spiritual side than just the personal development. I like them both, but that was more where I was at, and he introduced me to people like Deepak Chopra, Wayne Dyer, which might be going back further than most.
Wow. No, I was just listening to them this morning, so yeah.
There you go, right? Okay, good. Perfect. And then James Redfield and Neil Donald Walsh, anyway, a bunch of people. So that was where I was more interested. And then what happened is when I started doing these events and people having these transformational experiences, people would come up to me at the end of the event and say, wow, man, that was amazing. Would you be my counselor or my coach or my therapist? And I'm thinking, and I go, yeah, I can't do that. I don't have any licensure to do that. Mm-hmm. And when you do anything like that at scale, you open yourself up to serious legal issues, right?
That's true.
So I said, well, I'm not going to go to college for 7 years and become a psychologist, right? And then someone said to me, well, you could become a spiritual counselor and you can get a PhD in that. And that gives you licensure to do counseling. I said, really? Anyway, so that's what I did. That's why I got the PhD in spiritual counseling, just so that I could provide counseling to people, right?
Yeah.
Not because I wanted to call myself a doctor, right? But what happened was, I have coaches for so many different things in my life, but I have a publishing coach, right? Mm-hmm. And so he said to me, look, I was reading here, it says you have a PhD in spiritual counseling. Is that right? I went, yeah. He said, well, that means you're a doctor then. I go, yeah, I guess. He said, well, you got to put that on your book, right? It's instant credibility, right? I went, really? Yeah. He went, yeah, right? So I did. I put it on my book. And then when people call me doctor, I go, yeah, I guess I am a doctor, but I just never thought of myself as being a doctor, right? Because, you think of a doctor as someone who gives, medical advice, right? So anyway, so that's how that happened. Kind of, again, you might think by coincidence, but there aren't any, right? So anyway.
I love that. I love that you said that there's no coincidence. I have a friend of mine, he said, Karan Andrews, he's a TEDx speaker too, and he said that he doesn't believe in coincidences. Coincidences are God's way of remaining anonymous. And I was
just going to say the same thing, man. Yeah,
it's powerful.
I told Tony that quote once before he was just about to go on stage, and guess what he did? Within 2 minutes, he used it.
Yeah, it's powerful.
Because that's how amazing he is, that he learns all the time, but then he uses it, he applies it, right? Mm-hmm. So anyway, and I'll think about who said that. It's this famous speaker who's a black speaker, and I can't think of his name right now. But he's the guy that I think coined that phrase, but I'm not 100% sure. But anyway, yeah, it's a great phrase. Coincidence are God's way of remaining anonymous. Absolutely. So anyway, or coinkydinks, whatever you want to call it. Coinkydinks, right? So, so I was working for him, and I met these more spiritual teachers, and then I got into the spiritual counseling side. And then I was doing my own events, 3-day transformation events called Transformation. And then I got into investing, very coincidentally, right? So I got approached by a large real estate training company that asked me to do my transformation events because they said they have a lot of students who come into the program that spend a lot of money, 25, 50 grand on education, but they never use it. They never do anything, right? Because they get scared, right? So they said, we were thinking if you would put one of your events on for our students to help them overcome their fear of buying real estate, of actually doing a deal or doing deals, right? So I'm like, for sure. But then I'm thinking, I haven't even bought any real estate myself. I'm going to tell them to do it, right?
I'll fire them up, though.
So I always remember the story of Gandhi. And I don't know if you've heard this story. And I don't know if it's true, but it sounds like it's something he would do. But anyway, there's this young kid who has an addiction to sugar, but he is a, what do you call it when you can't have sugar anymore?
Like diabetic?
Diabetic, right?
Yeah,
He's a diabetic. So he's almost killing himself because of the sugar, right? So finally, he takes some sugar and he faints and he almost dies. So his mom says, okay. But his hero is Gandhi. So she lives at the other end of the country, which, as you know, it's a vast country, right? So she gets her son, gets on a train, takes about, I think it's a 3-day journey from where she was to where Gandhi was. And, they're not the only people who want to meet him, right? There's lines around the building, right, to go meet him. So finally, they get into this room and, it's a hardwood floor and he's just sitting there in the corner in a lotus position with the windows open behind him and the curtains billowing because they don't have air conditioning. Right? So she goes to sit in front of him and says, Gandhi, my son is a diabetic and he keeps eating sugar. And if he doesn't stop, it's going to kill him. So would you tell him to stop eating sugar? And Gandhi said, come back in a month. She's like, what? So she leaves and she's all confused, right? She goes all the way back home. But she goes back in a month, the journey again, right? And they get back to the same place, and he's in the same room, sat in the lotus position. And she takes her son up to him again, tells the same story. And Gandhi says to the boy. So she takes him back to Gandhi a month later on the train again, get to the facility that he's in, they wait, they finally get in to see him again. He's sitting in front of the window with the curtains are billowing, and he's sitting there just as he was a month ago. So she takes her son to sit in front of him and explains the thing again. And she said, Gandhi, will you tell him to not eat sugar? And Gandhi looks at the kid and says, don't eat sugar. I just went back.
That's it.
Thousands of miles, came back here again. Why couldn't you tell him that a month ago? And he said, because a month ago, I was still eating sugar.
Oh, leadership by example. Is that the essence?
Yeah, so he couldn't tell the kid not to eat sugar unless he had stopped eating sugar, right?
Mm-hmm.
So for me, to go back to the story I was telling about me, and they want me to tell all these people to go out and start buying real estate. I didn't own any real estate.
Yeah.
So I said to them, okay, fair dues, but you got to let me come to one of your trainings, use what I learn, and then I'll go out and buy some real estate so I can help them overcome their fear of doing it authentically, right?
That's right.
So I went out and bought real estate. I bought 13 houses in 6 weeks.
Oh, snap.
I made over $1 million, right? In the long term from all those investments. So that gave me the confidence and the right to be able to help other people overcome their fear and do it. So, and part of the reason I was able to do that is because I wasn't doing it to make money. I was doing it so I could tell other people to do it because I did it and I got really good at it. The point being that I got so good at it that they wanted me then to go teach for them.
On how to do real estate, not just fire them up, but actually how to
go teach their students how to invest in real estate.
Right.
And that's how that started. So that sent me off on a different trajectory, which was a lot more financially rewarding, right? So through doing this and buying all this real estate and making all this money in the investments and teaching it, I found myself in a position where I was able to buy myself a mansion, right? Have all these, material things, right? So I had a Rolls Royce, I had a Bentley, a convertible Bentley, I had all these things, right? Because of the financial gain that I had. I mean, I did a lot of things for charity as well, but I had all these material things. And then I go through my 4th divorce, right? Again, right? Because of these patterns when I was a kid, right? And the pattern that I had developed without me knowing was, I think I told you about running away, right? And did I tell you about the dog running after the car?
No. Please share.
So I just wanted to run away from home. And I think I told you I'd tried it a number of times and they kept catching me and bringing me back, right? But across the street from where we lived, there was a dog, right? And the dog was a little terrier, but he had a Napoleon syndrome, right?
Mm-hmm.
So he always wanted to fight with the biggest dog, right? And he would yap and, anyway. So he used to occasionally chase after cars. You talk about a big dog, right? And he'd run down the street, barking at this car, trying to nip at the tires. And of course, the car would run away, right? So in the dog's mind, he was showing that big dog who was boss, right?
Yeah, that's right. You better go. Yeah.
Yeah. You better drive. You better move, right? So anyway, one day he's chasing this car and the car stopped for whatever reason. He ran into the back of the car and he hurt himself. You heard him whimper, oh, yeah. And he started running the other way. The dog started running the opposite. What was the dog running away from? The pain.
Pain.
Because the dog thought that if it ran fast enough, it could get away from the pain.
Yes.
And that was me. I was running away from the pain.
Mm-hmm.
I was running away from the trauma. I didn't want to feel it. I didn't want to look at it. So when I got away from home, I didn't start running because I wasn't running away from a physical home. I was running away from my home, which is me. I was running away from the pain. And so when this pattern would follow me my whole life, right? So when I would get into a marriage, what would happen at some point, the marriage became painful and subconsciously reminded me of the pain when I was a kid, that this person was starting to be controlling like my parents, angry at me like my parents.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't know that consciously. All I knew is I had to run away. And so I did. And this pattern kept repeating itself. I didn't know that. It just, at the time, it felt like, well, this is the right thing to do. Get away, right?
Yeah.
So that's how powerful patterns are. And I was in my fourth marriage, just going out, ending my fourth marriage. And so what I also noticed was a pattern of mine, Cam, was that I would build things up like a marriage, put my heart and soul into it, or a business. Didn't matter what it was, right? And then I would get burned out. And when you get burned out, you're weak, right? In terms of you just got no energy. You don't want to do anything. It's like, just leave me alone, right?
Mm-hmm.
In a marriage, just leave me alone. This is too painful, right? And that is when I would implode it. And it would all just come crashing down. And then I would reinvent myself.
But you still have that sense of control because you were the one ending it, imploding it, and
yeah. Stop it. So what I was going through in this fourth marriage was the same thing again. But also in the businesses that I had. That's why they kept failing, because I would build them up, it'd be very successful, I'd make all this money, and then I'd implode it, which I ended up doing with the speaking too, right?
Yeah.
Anyway, so when you're at that point and you're so tired and you're so burned out and you're so weak, that's when the healing can happen. That's when something's going to happen in your life that is really going to teach you those lessons, right? That you need to learn.
Yeah.
And so if I've let go of my marriage, I've let go of my business, I've let go of all this stuff again. And the universe abhors a void, right? It's going to fill it with something. And that something is probably going to kick your ass. And what was this something? It was Tamaz. It was her. She came into my life like a powerhouse, right? She is a powerhouse. And she became my focus. She became my world, like my business had in the past or my marriage had in the past, right? But she was there to teach me. She was a master teacher. So in this relationship, as toxic relationships have certain patterns that come with them, right? So first of all, this is the best person you've ever met in your life. You're so much in love with them almost instantly, right? And you tell yourself, well, that's because this is my soulmate, or this is the person I'm supposed to be with, right? And so you pretty much drop everything. So we met online. So I'm going through this divorce and I'm kind of mourning that divorce, as you do. I mean, I don't think anybody gets married to get divorced, right? I certainly didn't. I always thought, I'm the, what do you call that? Romantic, right? So I always thought this is going to be my last wife, right? Which I hoped it was, right? And then when you realize it isn't, it's pretty devastating, right? It's not a good feeling, right? So I'm going through this period of mourning the marriage, right? And my friend, who is in the book a lot, right, Jerry, is saying to me, look, man, you got to pull yourself together. You got to start, living your life, right? And, maybe you should start dating. And I looked at him like, dating? Are you freaking crazy? Right? So anyway, finally, I'm in bed, mourning, feeling sorry for myself. And I thought, well, let's look around on a couple of websites. Well, how bad can that be, right? So anyway, I go through this website, and it's, well, let me tell you the name of it, because this alone will tell you this isn't a good idea. So it's called Millionaire Match, right? So what kind of women are going to go on there, right? They're looking for a millionaire, right? And, maybe I could just have a fling with somebody, right? Maybe there's some beautiful women in there, right? So I come across Tamaz, and I'm going, holy shit, she's fucking gorgeous, right? So I'm thinking, I'm not going to have any chance with her, right? So I'll just keep looking, right? So now I'm looking around at other women, right, that are pretty and all that, but I kept going back to her, right? The magnetic pull, right, that you can't explain, right? Well, you could explain if you look at it. You can say, well, I can see why that would be, right? She's this beautiful woman who you just look at it and you go, she either is or was a model, right? And you could tell that she came for money because she's like doing equestrian horses. She's doing show jumping. There's pictures of her in Brazil, in France, in Italy, in Miami. She's doing pretty well, right? Whatever. And so I'm thinking, I got no chance here, right? Anyway, finally, I figured, well, I got no chance, but what have I got to lose, right? So I sent her an email through this website. Of course, I didn't hear anything. I'm thinking, and so I start looking around, but I kept coming back to her. 3 days later, she sends me a text back, like 3 lines. I don't even know what it said, but I go, she likes me. Nothing in what she said she likes me, but I'll take any form of encouragement at this point, right?
Yeah. Just happy to see your name in the inbox. You're just happy to see her name in the inbox.
What?
You were just happy to see her name in the
inbox.
Right?
Oh my God, yeah, that's great, right? So then I texted her backwards and forwards. I'm sending like a freaking epic, like a book. She sends me 3 lines, right?
Yeah.
So I remember showing Jerry, I said, look, this is what I sent her. And he just started laughing. He goes, dude, she probably started reading after the first chapter, right? It was like way too much, right? So I said, yeah, you're probably right. So then I finally get her to agree to go. The amazing thing is, this is like a worldwide website. Turns out she lives down the road, right? 40 miles away, which is nothing, right?
Yeah.
So I get her to agree to go to coffee with me, right? On one day, she says, okay, let's go for coffee. I said, okay. Next day, she canceled. What the fuck, that's just what? So anyway, one of the photographs of her on the site is she's at a museum. And in this museum, there's a wall of typewriters, right? I don't know, 50 typewriters, whatever. Mm-hmm. And it's really high. She's 5'11" in her bare feet, right? And she always wears heels, so she's about 6'4". But she's reaching up on the typewriters above her, pretending to type, right? Someone takes this photograph. So now I'm thinking, I got to get her back in a date, right? I got to figure out a way to get her back on a date. So I sent her a message, right? And I sent her a text, and I said, hey, listen, I'm looking for an assistant. She needs to be a high-handed typist. Do you know anybody? Typist, right?
Yeah.
So she texts back, me, right?
Yeah.
And I said, you're a bit eager, aren't you? I said, well, anyway, why don't we have the interview over dinner? So, she knows I'm joking, right? But she goes, okay. So she agrees to go on a dinner date with me, right? So here's the bottom line. This is what's crazy. So I'm thinking, I got to freaking tie this down, right? I can't let her cancel again. So I've got to do some things that I'm not going to allow her to cancel. So I told her I made all these arrangements, which I did. I went to extreme, insane lengths to make this a really amazing evening. And so I said to her, this is going to be amazing. Got it all set up. By the way, what's your favorite flower? So I'm letting her know I'm going to buy her flowers, right? Obviously not very subliminal, right? I go, what's your favorite flower? And she texts back, bird of paradise. So then, I like to joke around, you know that, right? So I go, nuh-uh. Mine too. Right? But then I go, it's a bit expensive though. So what's your second favorite? And I kid you not, she came back. Venus flytrap.
Mm.
She named herself and she named the book.
Wow.
She know that, right? So, and when she said Venus flytrap, my intuition went, whoa. You know, I didn't even know what a Venus flytrap was, but it sounds pretty ominous, right?
Yeah, yeah.
So my intuition went, she's dangerous.
Yeah.
She's dangerous.
Poison ivy. What's going on here?
Right? Yeah, see, right? And so I just went, so my intuition went, she's dangerous. And my mind said, yeah, but I like dangerous.
Yeah, that's right. We can figure it out.
You don't want to listen. Exactly, right? It's like,
We'll
I
figure it
knew from the first few minutes, right? The first few minutes, people tell you who they are. So I had that ominous feeling. So, and that's the dichotomy. Exactly who she is. She's this beautiful bird of paradise on the exterior, but inside she's the Venus flytrap.
Mm.
And so I knew in that moment that she was the Venus flytrap and I was the fly. She was constantly trying to devour me, and as the fly, I was constantly trying to get away.
Mm.
Which makes it funny too, right? Because the stuff we got up to, her trying to capture me, her trying to get everything from me, and me constantly getting away, is freaking hilarious, the stuff we get up to.
Yeah.
And the way that we managed to stay, you know, me staying out of the jaws of the Venus flytrap and her trying to get me in, right?
Right.
It's very funny. It's also tragic. It's also a beautiful romance. It's also very sexy because I had a freaking huge sex room in the house, right? And she's a sex addict, right? I mean, and people go, well, dude, it couldn't get any better. What is wrong with you, right? And I go, yeah, I know. That's why I kept going back, right? Because it was so good, you know? So that's what kept me in it. And she is amazing. Her father's a genius, right? Billionaire, genius, right? So she was born into immense wealth. So when I found that out, I'm thinking, well, good, she's not looking for money, right?
Right.
But what I didn't know is, you know, I told you I was in an asylum when I was 16. So was she.
Mm.
I mean, talk about a mirror, right?
Yeah.
So her father put her in an asylum when she was 16 and she couldn't get out. So she was extremely, as you can imagine, angry at her father.
Mm-hmm.
Here she is, this young, beautiful girl, right, who is born into tremendous wealth, used to getting whatever she wants, whenever she wants it, right? So her father puts her in an insane asylum. She's pretty pissed, right? And she's so angry at him, the anger turned to hate.
Mm.
So this is her mindset, right? This is the connection. So if my father doesn't love me, I must be unlovable.
Yeah.
That no man is ever going to love me. So her goal was to find wealthy men, take all the money from them, destroy them, so she could prove that she was smarter than them.
Mm.
Now, that's kind of fucked up, right?
Yeah.
And I didn't know this at the time, but a few weeks later, this is like we're 3 weeks into the relationship, right? I find out that she's an alcoholic, right? And I didn't know what to do because I did know what to do, but I didn't do what I knew I should do, right? Which is I should have just enjoyed the weekend and then taken her home and that'd be over, right? But I didn't because that's not what I wanted to hear, right? So I called my friend Jerry over and I told him what had happened. And I said, what do you think I should do? And he said, dude, take her home on Sunday and that's the end of it. No big deal. But that wasn't what I wanted to hear. I said, you're no help, right? I want to fix this, right?
Yeah. We want to be fixers.
Rescue, save, and fix. And then they'll love you. Then they'll love you, right? Which is complete nonsense. That's not going to happen, right? So anyway, I confronted her about this. And you never confront an alcoholic and tell them they're an alcoholic. That's just not a good idea, right? Things are not going to go well. So she's been playing out. She threw a meal in my lap. She's telling, she's calling people, pretending to call people, calling her mother and saying, my mom thinks you're just being controlling. Why can't I have a drink of your rum? She'd taken a bottle of rum out of the cabinet that wasn't opened it, drank half the bottle and stuck it under the sink in the guest restroom, right? And I just happened to see it because the door was left open a little bit. So having a drink is not drinking half a bottle, right?
Yeah, that's true, yeah.
I'd been married to an alcoholic before, so I knew all the signs. So anyway, she's playing up, she's going crazy. And then we left the house hoping she'd calm down, came back, and she was gone. Right? I mean, she was somewhere, but I didn't know where. She was hiding, which turns out she was very good at hide and seek because she played it a lot with her brother when she was a kid. Now, she's 5'11" in her bare feet. How she would get into some of these spaces, she's a freaking contortionist, right? Anyway, I decide at one point I need reinforcements, right? So when we first met, she'd given me her father's phone number, right? So I go, he's probably not going to answer. He doesn't even know who I am, right? But at this point, I'm desperate. I'm just going to call him, right? And I'm thinking he probably won't even pick up. He doesn't know my number. He won't know who I am, right? But he picked up. Wow. Now I'm really nervous, right? So I said to him, Mr. Kingston, you don't know me, but I'm dating your daughter, right? And so nothing, didn't say anything, right? So then I go, I don't know whether you know this or not, but your daughter's an alcoholic, right? And he goes, oh, yeah, I know. And I'm thinking, well, why haven't you done anything about it then? So then he said, I put her into rehab more times than I can remember. Last time I put her in rehab, it cost me $100,000, and she checked out 3 days later. You said you're never going to change her, right? He said, let me ask you this. Is she in your house right now? And I didn't want to say, yeah, but I don't know where she is, right? So I just said, yeah. He said, well, get her out and don't ever let her back in there again. If you do, you're a fool. That's a father.
Yeah.
Right? And he said, look, she's done this many times before. The last guy she did this to, he almost went to jail for 15 years, right? So you would think that would be the end of it, right? But no, it wasn't, right? At the end of the night, so what happened then is I thought, what am I going to do? So I'm going to call the police. I called the police. What do you think they said? Oh, yeah, we're already on our way. She'd already called them. So when they got there, she ran out of the garage because she was in the garage, right? And then, of course, she had control of the narrative, right? We just, Jerry and I just sat in the house and waited for them to come in. And she told them all kinds of lies, just trying to throw as much mud at the wall as possible, hoping that some of it would stick. Like the police came in, the officers came in the house and they said, well, they said you took her in the sex room and you guys tried to rape her and that you guys are gay. I said, okay, let me get this straight. 2 gay guys are going to take her in the sex room and try and rape her. Explain that to me. And then the other guy goes, yeah, I thought about that too. Yeah. She was just saying things.
Yeah, right? Anything, yeah.
Because I found out this later, and this went on for 10 hours, right? 10 hours, this whole thing. This chaos, right? And they weren't going to believe us. They were going to take me and Jerry to jail, right? Because the police want to take someone to jail so that they can defuse the situation.
That's right.
I'm not blaming anybody, right? It's not always the guy, but it usually is, right? So they're looking for reasons to do that, right? So finally, Jerry says, listen, I have a recording of her. Will you listen to it? Right? And one of the officers says, well, did you get her permission? And he goes, well, no. He said, well, then it's inadmissible. So Jerry goes, well, I'm not looking to be in a court of law right now. I'm trying to listen. There's a lot on the line here, right? I'm just asking you to listen to it and then before you make your decision. So they did. And it was, at the beginning when she's doing the crazy stuff, and they just said, okay, we get it. So we didn't get taken to jail. They go outside and told her she had to leave, which she wasn't happy about, right? And so at the end of the night, when all this was over, they came in the house and they said, let me ask you a question. How did you guys meet? So I go online, like lame, right? And they go, oh my God, right? Because this is the kind of thing that happens all the time. So they go, well, just so you know, if we had taken you to jail, she's a guest in your house. What that would mean is she could get a restraining order against you. You wouldn't be able to come back here.
In your house.
And you can't ask her to leave. You'd have had to have her evicted, which could take 6 months. Meanwhile, she had your house and everything in it. And she knew that because she'd done it many times before. So I was incredibly lucky, right? So I broke up with her then, right? Well, for the night. but we were back the next day. And you go, how the hell? You know, and this had happened many times. You get to the end of a chapter and go, you got to waste it. This time, they're definitely going to be broken up, right? And then you get to the next page, you go, they're freaking back together. Yeah. How is that even possible, right? Yeah. So there are times in your life where you forget everything you know because you have to have an experience you need to have. Mm. And that experience is going to let you see the mirror of yourself in somebody else. So like I said, she was a master teacher, but she was mirroring back to me the things I needed to look at in myself. Huh. It wasn't about her. Yeah. She was not doing something to me. She was doing it for me. As a soul, as a spirit. Mm. That she'd agreed to come in my life and do this for me to do some healing, to recognize my patterns, and to move past them. Yeah. Sometimes that is very painful. Yeah, for sure. Painful. Yeah, we had great times. Yeah, we were very aligned sexually and loved being together in the sex room. We'd spend days in there. And you go, you spent days in there? What were you doing? Because you can only fuck her once and then come and then you're done for a while, right? Well, yeah, under normal circumstances, that's true. But for me, there's all kinds of things you can do to pleasure a woman, right? Mm-hmm. Without it having to be, penetration. And she loved toys, and she loved oral sex, and she loved she loved all those things, right? So we would literally spend 3 days in there. Now, not the whole 3 days. We would be exhausted after 3 or 4 hours. And then we'd come out, we'd go by the pool, and we'd play backgammon, right? We both loved backgammon. In fact, we played it on our first date. And that was our social time. And we were jacked up on amphetamine, right? Yeah. So we were doing amphetamines, which enhances the sex, and it also means you can get out and you can stay up for days and you can talk like crazy and really get to know each other, right? So we did. And she is incredibly intelligent, right? Because her father's a genius, so some of those, some of those genes come over to her. And I would sit and we would talk and she would say stuff, you'd go, holy shit, I never even thought of that. That I had certain beliefs, and then she would share what her beliefs were, and I go, wow, that makes a lot of sense. Mm-hmm. I'd never thought of it that way before. So she challenged my beliefs. She got me to look at things differently. I took on a lot of those beliefs myself. And so it was an extraordinary experience. I mean, who wouldn't want to spend 3 days in a sex room with a, 5'11" supermodel, right? Not many, right? So there was a lot of gifts in this whole experience, as well as the crazy times when, I would come home and she'd be wasted, and then we'd get in the pool and we're moving around, but she was in a different world. Yeah. And then you'd feel alone, right? Yeah. Is this what I want? And I would ask myself, is this what I want for the rest of my life? And then I would say, no. So what would I do? I'd throw her out of the house. And when I'd done that, what would I feel? Oh, God, what did I do? I threw her out of the house. I shouldn't do that. Terrible.
So right? Go back again.
And go back again, right?
Yeah.
I'm doing this pattern, right? Over and over again. Until I didn't. Until I said, I'm exhausted. I can't do it anymore. Yeah. And I was starting to lose my sanity. I was going insane. Yeah. So the universe was saying, have you had enough? Because everything you need, you've already got. Mm-hmm. You don't have it in this moment because it's going to take some time to reflect on it all. You're going to have to get yourself back into balance, and then you're going to reflect on it, and you're going to be blown away by what she's shown you about you. Mm. But that's going to take some time for you to be alone. And that didn't happen right away because I did, rebound relationships, right? Yeah. After that. And then finally, I said, okay, enough. I'm going to spend some time on my own. I'm going to reflect on this. And that's when I wrote the book.
Is that when the lessons came to you because you were able to reflect and stop and pause? Yeah. And at that point, you were a spiritual counselor, PhD already?
Before all this.
Oh, okay. Got you. So you just had more of a message, more of a proof to the pudding. And that's something to think about, though, to say that she was sent to you as a mirror to learn things of what you were doing and how you needed to grow. But at the same time, there were good times, but it was the whole process, the ebb, the flow. But in that, you were able to see that about yourself and how you were potentially destructive to your own self.
So what are some of those mirrors, right?
Yeah.
That's what everybody wants to know, right?
Yeah.
So first of all, I'd done all this stuff, live events, speaking to thousands of people, being on stage. It sounds really good, right? And it can be addictive. But, I'm throwing myself into it, 14, 16 hours a day. I mean, I would get up at 5 o'clock in the morning, go to work out, get myself a juice. I mean, I would take all this equipment with me, but my Vitamix juicer, the bedroom looked like a grocery store, right?
Yeah.
So I would do all these things. Then I would go down to the ballroom before the event started, get all my things in place. Then I would speak from about 9 o'clock in the morning till 7 o'clock at night. Then I would go and have some dinner. And then, we would have a team meeting. Then I'd go to have some dinner. Then I'd go to bed. Every single day, right? It was every minute of my life was structured and to the minute, right? Mm-hmm. Which is okay for a little bit, but not every day, not 365, 24/7, 365. You just eventually, you want to break out like I was when I was a kid. The environment is so controlled, I had to get out of it, right? And that's when I imploded it again, right? I didn't want to do it anymore, right? I'm too tired. I don't even want to speak again, right? That's how I felt, right? And that's when she came into my life. So what was she showing me? Well, one of the things about Tamaz is, by the way, of course, that's not a real name, right?
Right.
I mean, I protected the names of everybody properly. But she was showing me that she didn't care about anything, man. I mean, she was a brat, but at the same time, she was an authentic brat. She didn't make any excuses for it. It's like, and she even said to me when I would get mad with her, she'd say, listen, you knew what you were getting at the beginning, right?
Yeah.
And she would say, this is who I am. Stephen, I'm never going to be normal. But you don't want normal, right? That's not what you want. What you want is me, right? Yeah. And I'm going, shit, man, she's so freaking right.
Yeah.
I got to be prepared to put up with the rough, with the smooth, right? Yeah. And so I would say to myself, well, let's think about this for a minute. I could break up, and I did break up with her a lot of times, right? But I could break up with her right now, and I could go back to a kind of, mediocre life, right? A bit boring even, right? Or I could put up with a little crazy and have this incredible adventure with this wild, crazy, venturous, funny, sex-addicted supermodel. You tell me what I should do, right? Kind of thing.
Right.
What would you choose, right?
And you get the taste of that chaos that's so familiar to you.
So familiar to me, man. That's why I crave it, because it's what I know, right? It's what I'm used to. And we go for what we're used to,
that's right?
My home environment was totally crazy.
Yeah.
Right? My parents were freaking crazy in a different way.
Right. But it's still that crazy, that chaos, and it gets so familiar. It's comfortable, even though it may be destructive. It's familiar, so it's comfort in that. Yeah.
100%, man. And that's why it was so difficult to let go. And so there were things happen. I won't go into all that detail right now, but there were things that happened that actually, crazy as it sounds, took the decision out of my hands. I didn't have a choice. I did not have a choice.
Yeah.
And I had to face that, which I don't know if it made it harder or not, but it was hard enough because I didn't really want to let her go.
Yeah.
Right? Still mad about her, crazy about her, right? But I had to in the end. I didn't really have a choice. But then you got to heal that, right? You go through all that. It's like having a death, right?
Yeah, the grief periods, yeah.
And in two ways, because I knew that once I come out of this, I'd never be the same again. Yeah. I knew that, right? Deep down. And so I'm grieving the death of the person that I was, allowing the person that I've now become into my life. And I'm grieving having to let her go and knowing that it can never be again. It'll never be again. We'll never be the same people we were at that moment.
Yeah.
The old saying, right? You never step into the same river twice.
Yes, yes.
So we're going to go in different directions here, and I have to let her go. And I also have to realize I can never be near her. Why? Because I'm probably still addicted to her, right?
Yeah.
And if I do, I'm going to be back in it again, right?
Yes, right.
So I had to cut off all ties, any connection, right? Not easy. So then the next part is, okay, so how do you heal from that? It's gradual, right? So you have to go back to being who you were before you met that person, right? Doing the things that are important to you. Meditating, working out, juicing, reading. The practices that you did beforehand that are a foundation of who you are.
Yeah.
And if you give those things up, the whole thing implodes, right? Your identity's gone, and now you got to bring it back, and that's not an overnight process either,
No,
right?
not at all.
You got to get back to, what do they say, back to basics, right? Or back to doing the things that give you a strong foundation of who you are. And then once you've done that, chances are, well, for me, you might have a rebound relationship, right? Because you want to fill that void, and it's just easy to do that, right? And I did. But then eventually, obviously, those relationships don't work because you're doing the same thing again, right?
Yeah.
And then you go, okay, enough. I've got to break these patterns. I've got to be reflective. Because like I said, I spent my whole life running away.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
You know, as a spiritual counselor, you know, being in personal development, we tell people you got to journal, right? Journaling is going to help you because it gives you a chance to reflect on your life. And of course, I had a journal and I wrote in my journal. But guess what I never did?
Read it.
Exactly. I didn't read them, man. I had stacks of them. Why didn't I read them? Because it meant I had to look back.
Yeah, that hits me real hard. Yes, sir.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I didn't even realize this consciously, Ken. But I wasn't going to read them. I know, and I never did, right? I did in the end, but that's a long way down the road. So knowledge is not power, right? It's only potential power.
That's
You
true.
gotta use it,
Yeah,
you know?
yeah. Oh, and Bruce Lee said, "Knowing is not enough. We must apply."
There you go.
Yeah.
Right? He seemed to know what he was talking about, right? So, yeah. And so, you know, and it was at the end of my fourth marriage that I actually looked in a journal.
Mm-hmm.
I looked in a journal by accident. Now, this is how amazing this is. So when I met my fourth wife, I was actually doing a speaking event. She was a student. Not a good idea, right?
Right, right.
So anyway, when I first met her outside the ballroom, we were both attracted to each other. Pretty obvious, right? And so within a few minutes, what did I say? People tell you who they are within the first few minutes. And she said to me, I just need to let you know that I'm a Christian and a Republican. Now, who the hell says that within 3 minutes? Right?
Yeah.
So that told me that's a bit extreme, right? Nothing wrong with being a Christian, nothing wrong with being a Republican, but to blurt that out so quickly.
Yeah.
We hadn't even exchanged phone numbers or anything, right? So that night I went back and I wrote in my journal what happened, and then I said in my mind, this will never work, okay? Never read that journal. Until we're going through this divorce, this separation, and I was in bed feeling sorry for myself, right? And I opened the bottom drawer of my nightstand to get something, and there are some of these journals. So I just picked one out. I opened it up arbitrarily,
Yeah.
right? What did it say? It was that exact thing right there. Now, what are the chances that I would do that to that exact? It was a coincidence, right?
Right.
Always God ways of remaining anonymous, right?
Yeah.
So I read it, and what did it say? She said, I'm a Republican, or I'm a Christian and Republican, and I said, this will never work. And there was the universe telling me that it was a foregone conclusion that it wouldn't work. And you knew it in the beginning, right?
Just kept going.
But it kept going.
Yeah.
And then it was there for me to read. I knew. I told myself, I felt that intuitive feeling. And then the universe says, well, you made the choice. You put yourself here, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I went through this experience. It really, I have no regrets, man. I mean, I have only gratitude to her.
Yeah.
And love for her. Now, I wouldn't want to go through that again.
Yeah.
And I won't go through that again. And so you say, well, how do you know? Well, people used to ask me, do you think you're over this, right? Do you think you're healed? And I would say, I have no idea.
Yeah.
And they said, well, you know, how, you've been doing all this work on yourself. What was the point? And I said, well, here's the thing. I don't know if I'm healed or not. And I will never know until I'm faced with the same situation again.
That's a fact.
And then I have to see how I'll react, right?
Right.
So, anyway, as I'm writing this book, who am I thinking about? Thinking about Tamales, yeah. Good point.
Yeah.
Tamales. I'm thinking about her all the time. So what do I know is going to happen? She's going to come back. Because the thoughts are electromagnetic energy.
Pulling in the energy, that magnetic, yeah.
I'm pulling her back in, right? So I knew it was coming, right? And of course, what? It happened. But what happened? She came back with the same patterns from before.
So, and now you knew, though. But you knew now. Yeah.
Now I knew, and I wasn't pulled in anymore. Why? Because I wasn't that person.
Yeah.
She didn't have that power over me anymore, right? And so I wasn't even tempted, Ken. I just watched the ship go by. I never attached to it. I never responded in any way, shape, or form. And it's still going on.
Yeah.
She's still reaching out to me now. Well, how did it start? It started out because she said, oh, yeah, I've seen this book, and obviously it's about me. Well, I want part of the royalties.
Yeah.
Imagine, right? I haven't heard from her in 11 years, and all she cares about is getting part of the royalties and wanting to be famous. Right? It's not even the money, really. And I just never responded. And so the next thing, she tries all kinds of extortion, threats. She's even contacted all the podcasts I've been on, I think, and said, this is all lies. Let me come on your show, and I'm going to tell you what the truth is. And then people have called me and asked me, what do you think? I said, have her on your show. I'd love to hear what she's got to say.
Yeah.
Right? And, well, hopefully, if she's got all this to say and it's not true and she's got a different story, I hope she writes a book. Instead of trying to ride my coattail.
Yeah.
He thinks if podcasters have already had me on their show, well, they'll have me on then, right?
Yeah.
I can become famous by disagreeing with what he's saying and tear down what he's doing. So just go knock yourself out. I'm not even going to respond no matter what you say. And then she tells me, my billionaire father has retained an attorney, right? Because, he is an attorney for Fortune 500 companies, and we're going to decide what we're going to do about this, right? No response. Like, do whatever you want, right? I mean, and then she's telling people on the internet, I'm the Venus flytrap. And I'm thinking, well, you told them that, not me. There's nothing in that book that would, define you or identify you. Anyway, the bottom line is it's still going on. Yeah. And the good news for me is that I'm not being drawn in. I have no desire to get drawn into it, which I absolutely would have in the past.
Yeah.
I offended myself. I wouldn't have wanted to think that about me. I would have been doing everything I could to placate her, right? And that's why it's very confusing for her that I'm not responding in any way, shape, and I'm not doing it to be cruel.
Right. You said yourself, you got nothing but good, fond memories, and wish you nothing but the best. But you have learned to have that callous, that resilience to be able to apply not just the knowing, but the applying of, hey, maybe I don't need to go back to what is so familiar and comfortable.
And also to take care of myself.
You got to.
Myself first, right?
Yeah.
So I'm not putting myself in a harmful situation again, right? And I told you there was a reason why I had no choice.
Yeah.
So the madness and mayhem is never going to go away, and there's nothing I can do for her.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
She'll never get treatment for it because of when she was a kid, and she was put in an asylum for this.
Right. Yeah.
She's never going to go to therapy because she's terrified.
Well, yeah, that's trauma. That's trauma. You don't want to put yourself back in that situation. So it's like, let me just control this ensuing, maybe not good for me situations, fill in the blank, because at least I'm in control of that. But if I go to them, they'll exploit me and re-traumatize me. And, well, no thank you. And it definitely takes you as the individual wanting to seek that on your own, not being, it's the word commit, right? It's such a strong word, but to be committed into something under your, involuntarily, that takes away your control, that takes away your power. So it's like, hey, I could probably mess this stuff up and make myself traumatized on my own. I don't need you, and that's that control thing, because
I can do that myself these days.
Yeah, but humans, we're control freaks.
She even invited me to go to a retreat with her to heal the relationship. I'm like, and she lives in Mexico, right? I'm thinking, you think I'm going to go to Mexico and be with you? I'd probably end up in Mexican jail, right? Because you'd find a way to get me arrested, and then how am I going to get out? Right?
Yeah.
And that might be paranoid, but it might not be.
Well, you feel it for a reason. The spidey senses, sometimes you gotta adhere to them, because that intuition, right?
And again, it's not because I don't care.
Yeah.
It's because I've got to make sure that I don't put myself back in the situation.
Yeah, but I think that the through line through all of this is that we all do this. What your Venus flytrap was, and your relationships, is the same as what a lot of us recreate through our trauma and through the familiarity, whether it's, pick a thing. I mean, the world is full of, like Dr. Olimpic talks about, dopamine nation. Like if you're not addicted to something, wait, it's coming to a website near you. It could be the phone, it could be attention, it could be fill in the blank, money, being on Amazon. It's not just being a wino in the park. We're all kind of addicts in our own way of recreating, especially those who've been traumatized, because it's soothing in a sick way, but that's why we're a little sick.
Well, you said that earlier. You said, you're used to the chaos, so you're drawn to it.
Yeah. It's familiar, even though and that's the same thing with abusive relationships. And people go, oh, they're hurting you, they're hitting you, why don't you just leave? It's not, it takes the average person 5 to 7 times on departure to leave an abusive relationship before they're actually done and gone with the relationship. 5 to 7 times is the average of leaving someone that is bad for you, but it's that recreate, and then you go out and play backgammon, and now we're back at it again, So
true, man. It's so true. And unfortunately, most people probably never realize.
No, and like you said, it wasn't conscious. It's subconscious, and it's those patterns, and it's familiar, and we're creatures of habit, just like you were when you had that by the minute schedule every day. And it's like, it's 7, I haven't worked out and taken my juice yet. Everything's going to fall apart. You got to do that, and we're just creatures of habit, which can be used for good. Right?
Yes.
But if we don't realize how bad it is for us, it's just business as usual, and we carry on the family business.
Yeah. And so, for me, having the tools that I've been fortunate enough to learn from Tony and all these other amazing people that I've been blessed to work with and study, that I have the tools.
Yeah.
Right? You could say, well, that means you have no excuse. I'm not making any excuse. I'm just telling you, I forgot all that to be in this situation. However, those tools, resources, understandings, and the experience together help me get through it. Most people don't have that.
No, they don't.
Right?
They don't.
They stay wounded, and they just stay confused. And so what I tell people is, look, I'm not trying to say that I was, fully aware of all this before it got started, but what I can tell you, I've lived it.
Yeah.
And what I can also tell you is I have a tool kit that's amazing, right? So I call myself a heartist, right? Because I believe that we need to get more into our heart than into our mind. I think that's going to be the conscious evolution.
The heartist. I'm a heartist. Yeah.
Yeah. So, and I believe in getting in touch with the heart, and I'm an artist.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Because through all my life experiences and from all the gurus, whatever you want to call them, I've learned from, it's given me an incredible palette of tools, right, that I can use to help people. Now, I don't use all the palette of colors that I have on everybody, because everybody's at a different place.
That's right. Yeah. You got to meet them where they're at. That's the first step.
There you go, man. You got to meet them where they're at in order to take them where they want to go. And that's different for everybody. So people say to me, well, what program is it? What do you do? And I go, I have no idea.
Yeah.
I don't know what I'm going to do, when I'm going to do it, until I know more about you, what your experiences are. You come from a different ethnicity. You come from probably a different religion. You come from a different environment. You probably might even come from a different country.
It's true.
Right?
Yeah.
And so I have to understand all those things before I can begin doing anything. I have to know where you are so I can relate to you. So, if we're going to talk about religion, we need to talk about your religion. And if I don't know what it is, I could really stick my foot in my mouth and really upset you.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
So I got to know these things. What country you're from? What are your values? What are the cultural rules that you play by?
Yeah.
Right? And different culture have very different rules, So, in a lot of cultures, the most important thing is family. Well, in a lot of cultures, it is.
That's right. And we're as unique as our little QR code that nature gave us right here on our fingerprints. So everyone's as unique as that, right? So in order to really help someone, you have to, show them that you care. But when you seek to understand them and know them, that's showing them that you care, even if they've never had that before. So how can I really prescribe you anything if I don't know you? And I definitely don't even know what your illness may be potentially. That's a metaphor, everybody.
Yeah, so once they know that you understand them, you understand their culture, you understand what's important to them and their culture, you understand their issues could be with being abused, it could be that they are the victim of racism, all those different things. I need to know that stuff.
Got to.
I know how to relate to them, empathize them, not sympathize.
Big difference. Yeah. Yes. Yeah.
But I can understand where they're coming from, and then empathize with them, and then I can take them where they want to go.
Yes.
Right, where they need to go.
Yes.
But until then, I don't know enough.
With empathy, though, there's the pity, which is like, oh, Dr. Edwards, you okay? And then it's sympathy, like, oh, I feel sorry for you. But empathy is, you know what, Dr. Edwards, I don't know exactly what you're going through, but I'm here with you. And we're going to figure this out together right? It's like that whole shame and guilt thing. I love how you a lot of people mess those up because guilt is something I did. But like Brene Brown says, shame is something I am. So you hate yourself. You are ashamed of yourself. And there's a big difference between that, just as there's a big difference between sympathy and empathy. And what people want is not to be coddled or babied or pandered to or patronized. They want you to genuinely care. And you can only do that by genuinely giving a fuck about them. That's what I say.
Yeah, and she's amazing, right?
Man, yeah, one of my heroes.
Yeah, and hero is a good word for her because she's not like mamsy pamsy.
Nah,
she's not like no. She's like, listen, you need to hear this.
That's right.
Grow up.
Yeah.
Get your big girl panties on. This is what you need to hear. I'm not here to tell you what you want to hear. I'm here to tell you what you need to hear.
And we need that.
So grow up.
We need that. Bro? We need that sometimes. But you would need to know that person to see if that's the tone that's most effective for them. Because some people,
yeah. Well, I mean, she's speaking in front of thousands of people.
Oh, most definitely, yeah. But I love her. No nonsense, no fluffy words. False teachers use flowery words. That's what Bruce Lee said. So, she doesn't. She just blunt, direct, Texas, up in your face, figure it out. And I'm here with you to figure it out,
I agree. So let me give you one story.
Yeah, please.
Right? I have a belief, and I think I mentioned this, right, that nothing happens to you, everything happens for you.
Yes.
That can be really difficult to really live that, right?
Oh, most definitely. Yes.
So I'm going to give you one example that had a profound effect on my life, and it already had before this happened. So I was committed to this belief. Now, but I'm gonna be real with you, right? When things happen, that's not what immediately comes to mind.
No, it's what the hell, mommy, motherfucker.
Exactly, right? So during this relationship, we would break up all the time, right? But part of that was addictive too, because you break up and then you have makeup sex.
Oh yeah, right? So people don't talk about that.
That can become an addiction, right?
That's the addiction, yeah.
So anyway, at this point, we're broken up, and I travel, usually 4 days a week, and so we had a breakup, and she leaves. She takes my car, and she goes, God knows where, right? She goes on a binge, right? Which is fine. I mean, and it definitely wasn't the first time she'd done that. But I had to go on the road. I had to leave, right? So I lock up the house. Anyway, she comes back knowing that I'd gone, right? To get in the house, party while I'm gone, and then leave before I get back, right?
Yeah.
So anyway, she breaks into the house, but I put the alarm on, right? So the alarm goes off. Now, what had happened in the recent time of this, right? There'd been some incident in the community, and the police were very slow to react. So the community director called the chief of police, right, and chewed him out and said, listen, we pay a fortune in taxes, this is whatever, right? And so she chewed him out. So you can imagine how pissed off he was, right? So the next thing, the alarm goes off, right? In my house, right? In the nicest neighborhood in the whole community, right? So he's like, all right, let's show them how hot we can come in, right? So they come in like a freaking army, man.
Yeah.
So like 6 squad cars, 2 SUVs. They had the dogs. They let the dogs out running through everybody's garden. The lights are going on. It's like 1 a.m. You can imagine how freaked out everybody is.
Yeah.
Right? He was making a point, right? So anyway, then I get a call from one of them, right? From one of the officers. Now, they all knew me, right? I even said at one point they should probably open a station here in the community, just make things easier, right? And I made the joke about, we were getting to know everybody on first name terms, right? So he calls me. He knows who I am, right? And he goes, listen, she's here, right? She's sitting outside the house in your car. She's stolen the convertible Bentley, right? So she's sitting there looking fabulous. And all these sheriffs all around her like, white on rice, and she's holding court. So I said, listen, no matter what, do not let her in that house, right? I knew that she would destroy everything, right? So anyway, he says, well, let me call you back. So I'm waiting, and he calls me back, and he said, look, I just talked to the chief of police, right? He said, I just talked to the chief. He said, we got to let her in, man. We've been here a bunch of times, right? Obviously, she lives here. We got to let her in. And I'm like...
And you're out of town at this point, right?
I'm 4,000 miles away. I'm like, oh, my God. So anyway, I get back home after the weekend. And, of course, she's nowhere to be seen, right, at that point. She knows to stay away when I get back. So anyway, I get in the house, and I look around, and everything's fine. I'm like, there's no freaking way. Maybe she's had like a brain seizure or something, because this is not what I was expecting. So I go in the kitchen, I put the kettle on, I leave, I come back, and the kettle's not boiling. So I go over to the kettle, I look behind it, she snipped the freaking wires. Now, do you think that's the only appliance she did that with?
Nah, probably not. That was just you getting your that was your litmus test.
Every freaking appliance in the house, the TVs, the lamps, you name it, she did them all.
Wow.
Upstairs, downstairs, in the office, the whole 9 yards, right? So then I sit down and I go, I know that's not it, right? I know that's not it. Now, when I was a kid, my mom used to send me to school clothes and that were way too big for me, right?
Yeah.
They look ridiculous, right? My overcoat would still fit me to this day. I'm not kidding. It was still fit.
Hey, look, he grew into it. Look at that. Yeah.
That's what, exactly. That's what she said.
Yeah.
I would go home and complain, Mom, I got to get some new clothes. She goes, you'll grow into it.
Yeah.
Of course you do, right? So anyway, and of course the kids are merciless, man, right? They're going to freaking laugh at you and all that stuff, right? If you look stupid, they're going to tell you, right? You're stupid, right? And the teachers weren't any better. And then either, I'd be walking across the playground and the teacher would go, Edwards, come here. You know what I mean? What are you doing? I don't know, sir.
Yeah.
What are you wearing? Yeah, I'm not really sure, sir.
My mom said I'd grow into it one day.
Anyway, so bottom line is, by the time I was 9 years old, I'm buying my own school clothes. I had to find ways to make money, whether it's selling cigarettes or whatever it was. Right? And so I'm buying my own clothes. So my point is, clothes have become very important.
Yeah.
Because they've become a source of humiliation. Mm-hmm. So now I always wanted to look immaculate, have the nicest clothes and all those things, right? So at this time, I'm making a freaking small fortune, right? So I had a wardrobe to die for. And of course, that popped into my mind now, right? I'm like, oh no, please God. No.
Clothes.
No. So I go to the closet. Everything looks fine. Go into the closet. I pull back the clothes. She's cut them all up, man. Everything. And my shoes.
Wow.
Right? So I'm not going to try and tell you at that point, I go, well, this is happening. Pissed, man. I'm so pissed. But wait for this, right? This is the powerful part of it, right? So I'm pissed, man. I'm so mad. I say I didn't want to hurt her, but I did want to kill her.
Right.
Anyway, so finally, and I kind of had a blackout, I think, because I can't remember what happened pretty much after that. I was so angry, right? And when you get that angry, you can literally black out.
Yeah.
Right? But anyway, the next day, finally, I sit down, and I remember this to this day. And in my armchair, I'm looking out of the window over the lake behind the house, and I go, okay, So, this happened for me. I'm going, this is going to be good. Explain that to me, right?
Yeah.
Talking to myself. And so I went through the process. It's not instantaneously that you're going to figure out how it happened for you. So here's what went on with me. After a while, not right away, after a while, but I'm going, come on, man, why would this have happened for me? And then I go, well, let's be honest, it's just clothes, right? Which is complete bullshit. That's never going to get you through it, and that's not why it happened, right?
Yeah.
So I go, yeah, but they were damn nice clothes, man. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So you're having this conversation, and you've got to keep going, right?
Yeah.
You can't give up on it. So by being committed to the belief, I finally got to the point where I said, attachment.
Yeah, attachment to the material of clothes.
To the point where when you're attached to something, you believe it's part of who you are.
Uh-huh.
It's part of your identity.
Yeah.
And I'm going, I'm not those clothes.
Yeah.
And so I got it, but that was only the beginning. Because then you go, okay, what else am I attached to?
Yeah.
Now you got to do an inventory, right?
Yeah.
So it just keeps going. It keeps rolling out. So the next thing is, because I didn't think I was attached.
No.
Sometimes it's completely unconscious. You don't even know. Because people would say to me, listen, man, you got a lot of shit here, man. You got a lot going on here. What would happen if you didn't have any more? And I go, dude, I would be exactly the same, right? And I totally believe that. So as I'm going through this process of recognizing what I'm attached to, I go, yeah, that's a lot of possessions. But the reason it's spelled that way is because they possess you.
Ooh.
You see, to get all those things, those material things, you got to work your ass off.
Yeah.
You got to sacrifice a lot of your freedom. You got to compromise yourself in so many ways. Your health.
For stuff.
Right? For stuff, right? And all that takes time and energy. Not only that, when you get it, now it takes time and energy to maintain it.
That's true.
And then you got to replace it because it all goes out of style. It all wears out. And you got to get the new. It's almost like you have to keep up the facade. Right?
Yeah, so it's not like you have those things have you.
Exactly, man. You're possessed, right? Yeah. And so I realized something that I would say to people all the time, that less is more. The less you own, the less possessions you have, the less you are possessed, the more energy and time you have for yourself. And that's when I began to let everything go. Now, my point is, if I didn't believe that, I would never have come to that realization. And I would have still been angry for her at what I thought she did to me.
Yeah. But
instead of realizing she did it for me.
Yeah. That's deep.
And it goes on and on from there, right?
But it's gradual because, again, the first thing was like, oh, hell no.
That's right.
Yeah.
I had to work at it, man.
Yeah.
Because I was attached to it. So I didn't want to tell myself or anybody else to tell me that it happened for me. I wanted to be a victim.
Yeah.
Because what I was attached to was being taken away. Right?
Yeah.
Instead of realizing that I was giving it away so that I could learn not to be attached to it, so that I could learn that less is more.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Not just say it, but experience it.
Yeah.
Profound difference, as you well know. So that's just one example, man, that she gave me so many gifts. Being authentic, being true to myself, being vulnerable. Man, that's a big one, right? And people think, and I included, as a man particularly, although it's not easy for women to be vulnerable either because they expose themselves, that could be used against them, and often is. But vulnerability is a power, man.
It is.
It's a power,
it is.
Right? Because once you let go of those things that you've hidden from the world, that you've been afraid to share, been ashamed to share, or felt guilty about, as you said, either two very different things, right? But once you own it and you speak it out, it no longer has any power.
No, you own it. It doesn't own you. And, the thing and this is why this show exists, is that when we share things and we're vulnerable as you've been and sharing your story of knowing things but not applying them or not thinking that it applied to you, you make somebody else feel not alone. And that's and I don't think human beings do anything on our own. We usually always have something in conjunction, in collaboration, in connection to another human being. And some of those are lessons, such as the ones that you're explaining. And somebody will hear this and they might still have to go through the gauntlet and go through the process. Okay. But if anything, you make somebody feel, because I'm sure there was times too in all of this, you're like, how could I be so stupid? And then we dog ourselves and you know, and we're derogatory to ourselves. And you wouldn't do that to somebody else. So why would you do it to yourself? And, you know, that in itself would maybe help someone else not be so hard on themselves and say, hey, I'm going to figure this out and I'm not alone, because Dr. Edwards went through this, Cam went through this, et cetera, et cetera. And there's something in that connection and that unity of humans of saying, you know, why are AA meetings so effective in A? Because we're all there together commiserating and explaining our vulnerabilities and saying, well, I know I'm messed up, but I'm not as messed up as her or him. Actually, they're more messed up than me, but we're all messed up together, right? You know, that was a joke, everybody. Yeah. That was a joke, but it has that solidarity.
Yeah, so I did feel alone.
Yeah.
I did feel stupid.
Yeah.
Of course I did, right? And of anybody, I had absolutely no excuse, right? Yeah. So I'm like, I don't want to tell anybody this thing, and you are stupid. And I was, right? So, and this is what one of the things that I want people to realize is that I don't want them to feel alone. I want them to know it's okay, right? Don't beat yourself up about it. Don't think of it as one of the most terrible things that happen in your life. There are tremendous gifts in there. There is. Learnings and understandings that will change your perception, as it did for me, right? Yeah. When I was committed to that belief, I found the gifts in it. But you got to be committed to that, right? Yeah. Because it's just too easy to say, as I could have done, she just did this to me. Yeah. And people are going, no, she did it for you. No, look, I got the receipts. She cut up my clothes. Yeah. She cut all the cables in my house. She did that to me. No, bro. She did it for you to wake you up, to get you to look at those things in a different way. Yeah, right. So you could see the gift in it, right? Not easy, man. It's not easy to do. I'm not trying to tell people it's easy.
Oh, no, you said it yourself. It's a process. You got to digest that. You know, you might even have to shit it out for a second and then go, oh, damn, that was some stinky shit. You know, the whole process, metaphor, everybody. You know, you're not going to take a shit and fix everything, but the gradual process of the digestion and the maturity and then the processing of it in a healthy way. Like you said, you're framing it with you're committed to that outlook to where you can not convince yourself that it's not true, but actually find the truth in it and the lessons in it so that way you can grow, which what I hear to a more authentic version of who you are, not just what you read or what somebody else said, but actually what you know and you've applied. And it's like, nah, this is tried and true truth. And this is authentically me.
Yeah. So another thing that I would say about that can be helpful, and I'm not saying these things are cure-alls, right? I'm just saying these can be helpful, right? So when you say, you've basically got a choice when something occurs, right? You could say, that happened to me, or they did that to me. Now what you have is a wound, right? And that wound is going to stay there. Or you could say, no, it happened for me. Mm. Now, you know, like I said, you're not going to get the why happened for you instantly, but if you commit to the process, you're going to come out the other side, not with a wound. You're going to be wiser.
Yeah. And what Benjamin Franklin said, the things that hurt instruct. You know, that doesn't mean be a masochist, everybody, and go searching for these things. Hang around a while. Life will deal you some pain anyway, but to take the beauty of it. Because, you know, I always say with grieving, grief of any kind, but, you know, recently I lost my mother. Recently my Marine Corps career ended that I've known for 23 years. There's grief from a lot of those things. But I will say with the pain of grief, it is a beautiful pain because it's proof that you loved. It's proof. It's like the tax we pay the universe for love. And you don't grieve things you didn't love, even your relationship with Tomas, you know, and it's grief. And if nothing else, it's the grief of the hope that it could have been different, but you never step in the same water twice, right? Same creek twice. So you learn, you grow, but it's a beautiful pain in the end. Don't nobody take it out of context, okay?
Out of context.
Yeah. I'm gonna start cutting myself so that way I can feel better, and it's beautiful. No, dumbass. Nobody said that shit. Don't take it too far. Take it shit too far. Because that would have been me earlier.
You do have to qualify some of that.
You got to.
People are going to go, yeah, I'm going to cut my arm off. It's going to.
That's going to be great. I got a story now. Hell yeah. No. Nobody's saying that. I made this happen for me. Yeah. No, stop. You take a shit too far. Damn it. I say that because I have to do that disclaimer to a previous me, because I'd be like, yeah, I do that shit.
Yeah, I'm going to go for it, right? Yeah.
It's so crazy you said about the banging of the head, too, as a child. I have siblings that did that growing up to go to sleep with the head banging. Yep. It's I think it's familiar, it's comfortable, it's that chaos, and that's a form of it, and then it takes on a physical, because like you said, that mind, body, spirit, it is so interconnected. Now again, we all have our preference. I'm with you. I'm more on the spiritual side, and people go, what's the difference between spiritual and mental strength and physical strength? Well, spiritual is the thing that's going to fuel you when all the other things die off. Whoever your friends are, your body's breaking down, your mind's breaking down, whatever keeps you going forward, whatever keeps you getting out of bed every morning, that's spiritual. That's spiritual.
Yeah. I use the funny story. I think I told you, right? This is on the website that her parents saw, right? So I would like the Antichrist. But it says on the website, what's the difference between religion and spirituality? Well, religion is for people who don't want to go to hell, right? And spirituality is for people that have already been there.
That's deep. That's deep right there. But a lot of that to get to that heaven, whatever that may be, it's going to take releasing attachment and our addictions and the things that are just, whether we realize it or not, making us live in hell on earth. Hell might not be a place as depicted in, flames and stuff. Sometimes you could deal yourself your own hell and live in, and I think that's,
Well, the Pope said one day, the Pope once said, hell is a state of mind.
I believe that. I've been there. Yeah, I've been there. There's levels to this shit, of course, all of this, but yeah, I can smell what you're stepping in. How about that?
And that reminded me also what you said about, you can't take it with you. Is that it's actually a quote from the Bible, and you know it very well. It's right. It says, it's more difficult for a rich man to enter the kingdom of heaven than it is for a camel to slip through the eye of a needle.
It's the truth,
and
the attachment.
People misunderstand that. They think there's something wrong with being wealthy or owning things. What it's saying is, very often, people who have wealth and material things, they can't let them go.
No.
And so you're never going to get into heaven because you can't get in there with them.
No.
Like a camel can't go through the needle because of its hump.
It's a logistics situation, everybody. You understand?
This is a military exercise.
Yeah,
right?
Heaven does not have a supply chain management to be able to accommodate. No, but it's.
That's exactly.
But
right.
It's.
They can't keep the inventory. They can't keep control of it. It becomes a headache. And everybody says, "No, that was mine."
Mine. No. It reminds me too of what Denzel said in that commencement speech he gave at Penn. He had told everyone there. He said, it's about. Basically how you're affecting other people's lives, how you're impacting other people, because you can't take none of this shit with you. You'll never see a U-Haul following a hearse. And the Egyptians tried that shit and they just got robbed. You know what I'm saying? Like, so you really can't leave. You can't. So another one I love, and I've said this many times on the show, and I got it tattooed right here, but what Jim Carrey said, a comedian, the effect you have on others is the most valuable currency there is. The effect you have on others. The effect you have on others is the most valuable currency there is. That's where real wealth is,
Jim Carrey,
amazing, yeah, amazing. Comedians are the truth tellers of our times, so I love it. And laughter is cheap medicine, so do it often. That's what Lord Byron said. So I try to laugh as much as possible. It's a cheap medicine,
Yeah. Well, listen, man, you are extremely wise, and I want to have another conversation.
I would love to.
Where you got all that shit from, right? Because it's deep. It's good.
Well, it just keeps me going. I'm trying to.
You're very well read, and you're very well experienced.
But you know what I'm still trying to do, Dr. Edwards? I'm still trying to FITFO every day. That's the acronym we say in the Marine Corps, FITFO. Figure it the fuck out. I'm still trying to figure it the fuck out.
Well, you got a lot of it figured the fuck out.
Well, I appreciate you.
And you're very humble, which is good, but you're not full of yourself at all, but you're very unassuming. And so when it comes out, it's like, holy shit. That's good.
Hey, well, my experience has been you either stay humble and stay hungry, or you will be humbled and you will be hungry. So you might as well just stay like that, and humble warriors are what makes everything.
Quotes off you, man, because they're great, and I'm going to use them. I got U-Haul Hearst.
Yeah, that's Denzel. I'm really just a parrot. I just kind of regurgitate shit, you know what I mean? But
we all,
yeah,
man. We all,
nothing original, right?
No, there is nothing original.
Nah, nothing new under the sun.
Shoulders of
Yeah.
those who've gone.
But I appreciate you, man, because the way I look at it is iron sharpens iron, steel sharpens steel. You made me better today, and I had a few moments of conviction where I was like, damn, I'm guilty of that shit. I'm taking notes. I have been on my phone. I take notes. If I don't write it down, I'll fucking forget it. With the Chinese proverb, the dullest pencil is sharper than my memory. I got to.
I doodled.
I got to. Even JFK was doodling fucking ships when Cuban Missile Crisis. He was drawing sailboats and shit. What the fuck? Yeah, isn't that crazy? During the whole time he's sitting over there getting advised and he's drawing fucking sailboats and shit. But hey, it's cathartic and it makes it stick. But I do want to ask you this, sir, before we depart, because it is Mental Health Awareness Month, but to me it's mental health awareness all the time because it matters. But we are losing too many people right now in our society, in our times, to death by suicide. And I don't say commit suicide because that implies a crime, but died by suicide.
I learned that yesterday. I was talking to somebody who works with people that want to die using suicide.
Yeah.
And I said, they committed suicide. They said, no, we don't say that. So 2 days in a row. What are the chances?
But language is powerful, It's like how we still say master bedroom and weird shit. It's like, oh shit, that's a slave time term. Why do we still say that shit? But anyway, we say it. We say what we say. But I do think that it implies such a level of shame if you think about suicide that you committed adultery, you got committed, committed a crime, you committed suicide.
When he said that to me, I went, wow, that sounds so much better.
It does, yeah. But in saying that, people get to that point. If someone was there right now contemplating, they may be listening right now, contemplating, having suicide ideations, thinking the world would be better off without them, and want to die by suicide. If you had the opportunity to say anything to them prior to, because we always wish we could afterwards, what would you say, sir?
Well, one of the things I say is, can you remember a friend, whether now or in the past, that you truly loved? And not always. Some people say no. Everybody hates me or whatever, right? But usually you can get them to think of someone that they love, right? And so, and then you would say, well, let me ask you a question. If they said they were about to use suicide to leave this earth, what would you say to them?
Mm.
So rather than me telling them something, allow them to tell themselves.
Ooh, that's powerful. Yes, you are a doctor. You are. Because that's grounding techniques 101. And that just takes them right out of that limbic system and that lizard brain and puts them right in that strategic. That's deep.
Well, yeah. We know the answers, man.
Yeah.
And so if you just have faith in that, and that goes back to what we talked about earlier about sympathy. Nobody wants your sympathy.
Take that shit somewhere else.
Terrible thing because it's condescending.
It's so condescending.
Right?
Yeah.
Oh, you're not as good as me, so I feel such bullshit.
It is.
So when you see everybody as a whole individual and know that at the very core of their being, we're all fully enlightened.
Yeah.
We're all fully enlightened. So they're playing a role for you to do and say the right thing.
Yeah.
To help them, not to destroy them or to make them feel like they're not enough or not worthy or they're less than. That could be one of the reasons they might feel like they want to use suicide to end it.
Yes, right. You're right.
So by getting them, putting them in a different space, man, the mind, the brain can't tell the difference between something vividly imagined and something that's
true.
So you put them in their mind, in their imagination, and have an experience like that. Where does it reach? It reaches their heart.
Yes.
It reaches their heart.
A artist would say that. But it's so effective. You are a hope dealer, Dr. Edwards. A hope dealer. I love it.
I like
a hope dealer. I'm not dealing dope. We're dealing hope. That's what we're doing. That's what we're doing.
I love dealing hope, not dope.
That's right. Hey, I just want to say thank you and tell everyone out there listening, you matter. Please do not choose a permanent solution over a temporary situation. All of this shit is temporary, and I say that not just for you, but also you have no idea who or what is coming down this road of life. So please wait it out and just think you're going to be some light for somebody else one day, and you don't even know it yet, and they're waiting on you. So if for nothing else, you matter, we need you, and we love you. And Dr. Edwards, I thank you so much for being vulnerable, for sharing your experience, your truth, and we definitely got to do this again, my friend.
For sure.
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I'll be in touch.
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Thank you. And thank you to your team. You have an awesome team, by the way, an awesome team. And everybody, Venus Flytrap, you need to get that book and learn more from Dr. Edwards, sir. If anybody wanted to follow you.
While you're on it, Ken,
Yeah.
I think I sent you a couple of links for your audience, right?
Yes,
So they
I'm going
can
to put
get
those in the show notes for
the
sure.
book for free. They can get a free counseling session with me, the complimentary, should I say, and the 7 signs of a toxic relationship.
Ooh.
It's a little guide.
We need that.
Yeah.
We need that. Because some of us don't even know. We're just going off of what we know. And what we know might not be what's right. What does normal mean anyway?
Such a thing doesn't exist.
No, I'm definitely not normal. But I'm trying to figure it out. Fitfo, everybody. Thank you, Dr. Edwards. And all that will be in the show notes. And thank you again. Keep being a light, my friend.
Appreciate
Yes,
it.
sir.
You too.